Hey there, Internet. John Gale, aka Johnsensei here, Japanese language instructor and indie game designer from Nashville, Tennessee. It's Friday night, and I've been wanting to work on my game Hiragana Breaker, which is out on iOS and Android, for like days now, and have not been able to do it because the internet went out last night and all sorts of crazy reasons. And finally, tonight, I'm excited to get to work. Let's just go ahead and get to work. I'm going to zoom in here and show you my screen with this new view I've got for the video. Now I am in Unity, and what I'm doing for all the millions of people who have not been watching the video yet is I've got this game that has 46 hiragana in it. That's how many of the basic Japanese characters there are. So I've got 46 levels. I've got 46 buttons to get to those levels. I've got 46 quizzes. Or 46, buttons in quizzes, 46 buttons in the final exam. And the way I handled that was I had 46 image files that you can see right here, and I'm replacing those all with just this one image file and putting text on top of the one image file. And by doing so, I will considerably reduce the size of my app when you download it off the store or put it on your phone. Now, this whole idea of text and images on text, this was just a mistake to have images with text on them. And it was a mistake in my game because it increased the file size. In other games, it's generally a game design mistake anyway, and I've made the mistake. Let me make it so that you don't have to. And for other games, why it's a mistake is because it makes localization really difficult. What do I mean by localization? Basically, not only translating, but prepping games for a different local market, a different language, a different country, a different region. Because text itself can be manipulated. You can encode, update it to other languages and such. An image file has to be recreated as an image file with that different text. So for localizing a game, it's best to have text within the game and not burned or baked into the image. Now for my game localization, that wouldn't matter because the icons I'm dealing with are strictly for hiragana, the basic Japanese characters, strictly for learning them. And all the text I may need to localize in my game is already text. But I just read an article. I posted it on Twitter. It'll be on my Facebook page later this month, August 2019. And you can follow me on Twitter and Facebook at Mr. Johnsensei. I do these videos live on Facebook, post them to YouTube later for archival purposes. I feel like it's more of a live video, more of a conversation to be had with the good people of the internet. So I posted this article from a company called No More Robots, and I forget the name of their games, which I feel really bad about. But they talked about, from a business angle, they're getting on some of their popular titles about 30% of their sales from China. So for them, localization was just like a basic, very good business decision. And they had one game where there were a lot of, like we're talking about, images with text baked into it that could not be updated. The content of the game was also very much late 90s, early 2000s United States internet culture, so it didn't really translate well to other cultures like China. But also the images with text thing really hurt them. Basically made it impossible to localize the game. And so in terms of business, that game had the potential to sell so many fewer copies than their other game, which was a pretty good enough hit in China, equal 30% of their sales. Now look how this character is not matching up. I gotta go check something. So that's the lesson. That's the lesson, is images with text on them, like these, are a mistake on multiple levels. And what you're seeing me do here is basically correct my mistake from 3 years ago. Now, why did I make that mistake? Am I an idiot? I hope not. I have a master's degree in Japanese. It was because that was what I had the technical skill to do at the time. To be honest, working with images is a lot easier than working with text in some cases. I would argue most cases. Because an image, it is what it is. It's there. You can move it around, you can tell it to do things. Text can get tricky. How text scales within the game might differ based on device. If you're not careful with your fonts and your font file management, maybe the font of your text is not available on the device that the game's getting played on. When I first started with this game, I tried it. I legitimately tried just to have one block, and I wrote the text on top of it. And then when I would increase the text size to match the full size of the button, it would get all pixelated and stuff, and I didn't know why. I didn't know what was going on. In the years since, I've learned a lot about how text works, and actually the reason I'm able to make these improvements right now, because I did have to learn how to create my own font file. I did not design my own font, just create a font file called a true type font, and that's what's letting me do what I'm doing right now. So that took some learning and the acquisition of certain technical skills. So just working with images is pretty easy, and working with text can be a little bit harder. And so that's why it's tempting to do it. But it is a mistake. So being right here, right now, in this video, correcting that mistake years after the game came out, I would encourage any aspiring game designers out there to just not make the mistake in the first place. Again, depends on your situation. You know, you could be at a game jam, time crunch, but I would encourage you to do the hard work up front and make it easier later on, and learn to work with text. If you've got any questions, I can help you with some of the painful lessons I've learned with text in Unity. Feel free to post them in the comments as we're live on Facebook. Now, for all the millions of people who have not been watching this video series, let me tell you a little bit about it. I had originally called it Broke Indie Game Dev at Work. And when I came up with that title, I had a bit of a chuckle to myself, I'll be honest. I thought it was funny. So it was meant to be funny, but also wanting to do with these videos is sort of address what I'm going to label as a misguided over-glorification of game design. That may sound a little harsh, but that's sort of the most tactful term I can come up with right now. Misguided over-glorification of game development, game design. And so what do I mean by that? I mean that kind of like with any medium, any art, we naturally celebrate the achievements of those who have been catastrophically successful, I'll say. Just amazing levels of success. And you know, good for them, and Excelsior, and most of the time, 99% of the time, they earned it. They put in the work and the effort. But when we hear these stories, we develop something called survivorship bias. You go read about that on Wikipedia. Survivorship bias. So what is survivorship bias? This is basically how they get people to play the lottery. You see any lottery commercial, how does it go? You've got somebody, ordinary schmuck, ordinary Joe and Jane like you and me, telling their story. Interesting, that's scaled to 1. Telling their story of how they were, you know, stuck in a dead-end job, a day-to-day job, and then one day, miraculously, they went and bought that lottery ticket. And everything changed. And everything got better from that point on, because they won the lottery. And you can too. So what you're seeing is only the story of the person who won the lottery, and you're not thinking about or analyzing the millions of other people who did not win the lottery. And so you're only looking at the survivorship bias. And you think, hey, I'll go buy a lottery ticket and I can do it too. Quit my day job and live like a millionaire the rest of my life. So that is survivorship bias in getting people to buy lottery tickets. Now we do the same thing when we focus on entrepreneurial, or in this case we'll say artistic, and we'll very specifically focus on stories of success in the video game industry, and especially with indie games. And the example I like to bring up is Stardew Valley, and you can read that story in a book that I recommend called Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. And all these stories kind of go the same way. You know, Eric, the creator of that game, he was broke for 5 years, learned everything on his own over a 5-year period, had to live off his girlfriend while she worked 2 jobs and went to school, live with their parents. And then you kind of, you know, get to the end, and all of a sudden he's a millionaire. And there's a lot of things you don't really examine within that time. That's a 1-to-1 ratio as well. Interesting. For example, nobody ever talks about the story at the height of his poverty and brokedom and depression and despair. You know, you never hear that story. You only hear it at the point where the person is a millionaire and wildly successful, and then think, hey, I could do it too. If one guy went and made his own game as a millionaire, I can do it too. And what that doesn't look at is for every one of those wild success stories, probably about 1,000 failure stories of people who've some ways ruined their lives thinking they could do it too, and went about doing it the wrong way. So I tell that because that was kind of my story. That was kind of what I did. I set out to make a game studio, release this game, very proud of the work I've done, but have definitely gone broke in the process. So that was part of the reason why I named the video series Broke Indie Game Dev at Work. Again, I got a chuckle out of it and out of the title, and two, I did want to sort of share my story and be transparent about my own failures, with the hope not that people would give up making games, but they would learn from my mistakes and not have to make those same mistakes I did in their own quest, that maybe I could help somebody, because that's all Johnsensei's out to do. I want to help people learn Japanese by teaching at the Tennessee Language Center and by making games and teach people about game design, because I do enjoy it. I would not be here working these hours and hours and hours on this game, polishing it, trying to make it the best thing I possibly could if I did not enjoy it. But it is hard work, and I think more people need to understand that. I needed to understand it more, how much hard work it was. But I do believe that anything worth doing is going to be hard to do. The Japanese teacher of English I used to work with when I lived in Japan, I was an English teacher on the JET program, said that to our students about learning English. Anything worth doing is going to be hard to do. And I agree. You may disagree. You can feel free to say you disagree in the comments. Just no need to be a troll about it. We can disagree and be civil. So it is hard to do. It is worth doing. I'm wanting to help people learn how to do it. So making these videos, part of it's instructional video, even though it's not totally instructional video because I'm not teaching, but if you got questions about what I'm doing, just post them in the comments. It's also not entirely meant to be a video. You know, some people make videos where they just talk, they just share their opinion, they just say what's on their mind. Maybe something more along those lines. As I do this work, which is, this doesn't take a lot of focus to do. And I can talk and I can share what was on my mind. And so that was part of what was on my mind, was being transparent about my story, my failures, trying to help other people not make the same mistakes. And I made 2 videos titled Broke Indie Game Dev at Work. And I immediately lost 2 Facebook likes. Gasp. Now, I do a lot of social media. Used to do it for the Nashville Cherry Blossom Festival. Love social media. And we all know one of the things you should not be doing is assigning your own self-worth based on what happens within social media, how many likes or follows you get or whatever. So I would like to say I'm not doing that. What I feel like, I feel the same way if I lost 2 Facebook likes. I feel the same way as in my class. Sometimes a student comes through, they show up to class, they're doing their homework, seem to be studying. One's gonna give me trouble, just like everybody else, and they just don't get it. They can't read the hiragana up on the screen. We practice the target sentence, the target language over and over again, and it comes their turn, say it, to produce it on their own. They just can't, even though we've practiced it dozens of times. Everybody else in the class gets it, and they just don't. They're just lost. And I have a student like that every few terms or so. And I do everything I can to try to help them, and they still just don't get it. Whether it's an aptitude thing or what, I don't really know. I haven't really solved that mystery yet. But when it happens, I feel like, oh man, like I failed. I failed that student. Because I took this lesson from a book called From Good to Great by Jim Collins. Highly read book out there in business world. And what I learned from that book is that when things go right, you look out the window. You look at the team, you look at the people you worked with, you've looked at your followers on Facebook, and the people who have played my game at conventions and given me feedback. When things go right, you look out the window, you look to other people, and you recognize what they contributed. And when things go wrong, you look in the mirror. You ask yourself, what could I have done better? What can I do better to improve myself? And I think it's a pretty good concept. I like it a lot. So when I've got the student who can't keep up with the class for whatever reason, that's just what my habit. I ask myself, what could I have done better? I don't blame them. When things are going right in the class, I look at my students and what they're contributing. And when things go wrong like that, I ask, what could I have done better? And so when I lost the 2 Facebook likes after starting this video series, I felt the same way. I was like, because it was an obvious catalyst. It was obvious they saw the videos. Or like, this guy's just complaining about being broke. He's not helping me learn Japanese or learn game design. I'm out. And that was my initial feeling. That was my reaction. Like, oh man, I've failed somebody. What could I have done better? So it just made me reanalyze what I want to accomplish with these videos and what I'm going to call them. Because I was not meaning to complain about being broke. Having gone broke trying to start a game company and make a game and all that is very much, again, wanting to be transparent and honest and share my story to help others not make the same mistake. But for those 2 people who left my Facebook, I get it. It wasn't for you, and that's okay. It didn't help you, but it did make me think about the video series. So I've renamed the series Indie Game Designer at Work. Took the broke part out and I changed dev to designer. So a few reasons for this. Yes, I did consider, I thought broke was funny, but it also doesn't really have a very positive connotation to it. And that may not help people. They may not be interested in that. And another thing I thought of, and this just comes from like a lot of the books I've read, motivational books and things like that, is, in a way, you are what you label yourself. And if I'm labeling myself as broke, then that's what I'll be. That's what I'll always be. I thought it'd be funny to no longer be broke, but still call the video series that, just because I get a chuckle out of it. But then, maybe I am pegging myself into the corner to always be broke. So, all in all that to say, this video series is now called Indie Game Designer at Work. Another reason why I changed it from dev to designer is because dev a lot of times means a programmer specifically. Now I do program. I programmed a lot of this game, but My boy John West was the lead programmer on it. He's a developer. He's got the computer science degree and having a lot of luck with his game Skater XL. I mean, he was a broke indie developer for a long time, and now go search Skater XL. Put that on your Steam wish list. He's tearing it up with that game, and actually founding a studio and all that. And I'm super happy for him. Super proud of him. Skater XL. Okay, so anyway, he's the developer. He's definitely the programmer. I'm more of a designer. This is what I'm doing right now in Unity. Designing stuff. I forget which quiz this character's on. Height said to no head man. So since I consider myself more of a designer, game designer, than game developer, another reason I changed it. Because I use game development skills probably more in my class. You know, designing games for the class. Yep, 1.05. What I've learned from the game design books and practices I've been developing over the years, I apply more in my classroom than to games I've got out there on my website, johnsensei.com/games, or necessarily to Hiragana Breaker. I mean, game design is a useful skill. Other things than just Unity and video games or board games. And it's given me much life satisfaction to develop those skills and constantly be developing those skills. Because I'll be honest, and this may sound a bit pompous, may sound a bit egotistical, and maybe it is. I'll just say it is. But since I was 19 years old, I don't want to give away my age. Okay, let's say for like 20 years, because I've been doing this study Japanese thing, or learn Japanese, or speak Japanese. I've usually been the best what I do in the circle I've been a part of. Meaning, my first semester of Japanese, I was like top of the class. I loved it. I was hustling the hardest. You know, when I went to Japan, I had friends who had higher ability than me, but most of the time, in a class I was in, I was usually had the highest ability. When I went on the jet program, of the other jets I was with, I had the highest ability. I've really been used to having the highest Japanese ability in the room. In the greater Nashville area, I know the very small handful of other people who have a higher Japanese ability than me, and who aren't actually Japanese. So, what getting into game design and programming has given me is it's given me something new, something that feels like the way Japanese did for me 20 years ago. I'm actually not the best. I'm one of the worst. I'm usually in the case of game design, let me step back. In the case of game design, when I'm in a room full of people at the Nashville game developers, or at a conference promoting my game, trying to learn everything I can, I'm usually the dumbest guy in the room. That's what's new to me. Because Japanese, I was always the smartest guy in the room. I was the smartest guy in the room 80% of the time. Conceded to say all the time. But game design, like 100% of the time, I'm the dumbest guy in the room. That may not sound like a good thing, but there is an advantage to being the dumbest guy in the room. And that is, you are going to learn the most. I am going to learn the most. I am going to be the most improved in those situations. And so it's given me a lot of drive, something to really work hard for. And that's why I enjoy this so much, and why I want to help other people with it. So if you've got any questions, throw them up in the comments. Alright, we are tearing through the select menu. We are more than halfway done, I'd say, at this point. And when I get done replacing all of these, that'll be it. We will have successfully replaced these 46 image files. These image files appear within 3 places in the game. Here on the select menu, in the quizzes, and in the final exam. So in order to get the 46 PNG image files out of the build, I have had to do this for quizzes, the final exam, and the select menu. If I didn't get it off of all of them, then the point of doing the work was moot. But we are almost there. The select menu is the last place where these things exist. Yep, 1.02. What I'm doing here is I'm going back to the quizzes where I've already done this work, and in some cases I'm just checking my scale. There's my scale, 2% larger for this character compared to most of the others. So I just wanted to double check that. Character is Hey, and I know in here I kind of noticed it was a little bit smaller. Thank you. And wanted to make sure I was scaling it consistently with the exact same button that was on the quiz and final exam. Now you may ask, why don't I just copy paste that other button from the quiz that I've already done? And that would be an excellent question. It's because these buttons are set up programmatically to do different things. So the code's a little different in the background for each of the buttons. And that's the more complex part of this. And now I'm just dealing with the text and the image. I do not want to get all up in the code and have to change all that. So the button itself is here. It's already coded to do what it's supposed to do. I'm just changing its image and adding text on top of it. So that is the easier work than copy pasting the button itself, having to mess with that code. So a little bit of the design philosophy behind this game and this select menu. This chart with all these buttons, as you see it, is the chart of the 46 hiragana, the same way that Japanese children learn it. So we start here with the letter A. We have our 5 vowel sounds, A, I, U, A, O. And in the game, you play through the levels the same order you would play through essentially like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, that same order. A, I, U, A, O, Kaki, Kuke, Ko, Sashi, Susei, So. And every time you complete a level, whether you win or you lose, If you lose, you can just keep playing again. But if you want to give up and go back to the menu select, you can do that. If you win, you go back to the level select. The point is, you always, always, always come back to the level select. You always, always, always come back to this chart. And some people may say, hey, Johnsensei, isn't that poor game design? Like, why can't I just play one level after the other? Why can't, when I finish a level, I just go to the next level? Why do I have to keep coming back to this chart over and over and again? That's more work, that's more effort. And you're right. You're absolutely right. It's not a whole lot more effort, but the design is intentional. That was a very intentional design decision that I made, because I want people to get very, very familiar with this chart. It would be the same, to the same extent that you are familiar with saying A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's how familiar I want learners to be with the chart. So even in my own class, we use this chart. We learn it in the same order that Japanese kids do, because I'm a big believer in that the laws of second language acquisition, how you learn a second or third language, usually when you're older, usually through study, like at school or something, even though you may think it's very different from learning your first language as a baby, actually in your brain, on a subconscious level, it is not that different. The fundamental concepts are the same. Essentially the same. When most people study a second language, they tend to be older. They tend to be in school or taking a class like ours at the Language Center. And what you have when you get older is greater cognitive ability. You can think, oh, this is hard, all this sucks, oh, this is fun. A baby learning their first language doesn't really think like that. They don't have the cognitive ability to think like that. With that greater cognitive ability, you can better understand, for example, grammar instructions that your teacher gives you. You can better process that as logic. A baby doesn't have that. But in terms of what's actually going on in the brain, you need the exact same ingredients. You need stimulus. You need to hit your brain with it. You need frequency. And that is what this game is giving you. You will see the character over and over. You will interact with it. You will hear it over and over. And essentially learn the same fundamental subconscious way a Japanese child does. And so that's why I thought it was important to always bring the player back to this chart so that they're interacting with it, because you actually scroll this chart left to right to choose what level you want to play. You're interacting with it, you're reaching out and you're touching it and you're saying, okay, I'm going to play the Mei level next. That's this character, Mei. I'm going to play Mei next. You're going to figure out, it's not so explicitly instructed in my app that you've got 5 vowel sounds, a, I, U, A, O. And then as you move through each column, you add a consonant, like a k, ka, ki, ku, ke, ko, or a s, sa, shi, su, se, so. I didn't set out to explicitly instruct that like I may do in my class at the Tennessee Language Center. Like a Japanese child playing with blocks or hearing those sounds of their own language for the first time, so will you, so will the player pick it up just by playing a game. It's a block breaking game. It is, first and foremost, meant to be fun. Fun to play. An entertaining diversion to pass the time. But in the case of this game, also learn your basic Japanese characters. Or at least how to recognize them. Because, like I said, that's what I've seen my students struggle with. If I write something on the board and they can't read it, it's because they can't recall these letters, these characters. And that's sort of the problem I set out to address. The problem I want to solve is basic character recognition. That's the problem I want to solve with this game. For example, if you play the Mo level, you've heard Mo so many times and seen it so many times, you can't help but remember it. So those little things you see pop up on the screen, that's when I save. Just had it beat into me to always be hitting Control S or Command S here on a Mac and save. I learned anything through a lifetime playing JRPGs, Japanese role-playing games. It is to save frequently. Otherwise, you lose hours of your life. You get a game over. This one was scaled at 97%. I said in my first video to document everything, and we can see here how I failed to document the scaling of my characters, and because of that I have to go back to the quizzes to see what that is. Now with the documentation, have taken longer, maybe not. Still should have done it. All right, last few columns, almost there. Stay on target. Stay on target. Okay. Yeah, this character, this is an interesting character. Has a neat stroke order. I have to review it a lot in class, and even after we learn it, students always make mistakes, but that's fine, because you know what? In my class, you get points for making mistakes. We have a little sticker sheet. Kind of a game. You collect stickers and you get points for each sticker. And every time you make a mistake in class, you get a sticker. I've got a block for it that says, I made a mistake. And you get to put a sticker of Star Wars or DC comic book characters or Disney princess. Now, I'll admit, when I go to the store to buy stickers, I'm the one buying the Star Wars and DC comic book characters. And some of my students had to donate Disney princess and the stuff I wouldn't be caught buying at the store. You know what I'm always disappointed by when I've had to buy stickers? I mean, I like DC comics, I like Marvel comics, I like them both. But there's never like good Marvel stickers at the store, even with like all the Avengers movies and stuff. I don't get that. I'll go right after one of the Avengers movies comes out and there's no stickers at Target or wherever for Avengers or for Marvel characters. But there will be stickers for DC characters, so those are the ones I get. We need to see what the scaling is on Yo. Scale of 1. Okay, that was fun. Thought maybe it looked a little bit bigger. Well, thank you for coming back to right where I needed you. But scale of 1. Up, up, up. No, no, no. Did not want to move the button, just wanted to move the Hiragana text object. Very important to pay attention to the hierarchy. Okay guys, we are almost done. I have had this on my mind because I've been in the middle. I mean, it's taken, in the end, it will have taken about 5-6 hours of work to replace all these images. Now, I do not rue that time. This is me improving my craft, putting more hours into Unity. Been very inspired to work on the game and do this after years of building my technical skill in Unity. But the truth is, it is 6 hours of work I would never have had to have done if I had done it right the first time. If I had known what I was doing going in. But then that begs the question for discussion. How else do you learn how to do it except by doing it? And you can read books, you can watch videos, read blogs. I do a lot of that. But you also really just have to get in there and do it and mess it up and learn from those mistakes. Learn from other people's mistakes as much as you can. I'm making these videos so you can learn from my mistakes. But you will have to make your own mistakes. Whether it's learning Japanese or learning how to use the game engine. So don't fear those mistakes. Fight back against that resistance. Something went wrong according to Facebook. Please check your stream. Looks like we've had a little hiccup in the stream. Video is still streaming. Give it a minute to try to come back. Not quite a minute, a second. Brother is calling me. Hope that didn't have anything to do with it. Okay, we're back in business now. And let's get back to work. Duplicate that. Tell my brother, hey, why don't you jump on Facebook? Leave a comment. Let's chat in the window. Okay. When I'm playing with these videos, then I consider it more of a live experience. Live on Facebook. Almost 50 minutes. You know, if someone were watching this video on YouTube for that long, I hope they get a lot out of it. I hope, you know, maybe we could have some discussion there. But I'd rather you just play the game and learn your hiragana. I've seen, well, I mean, that's the point of this game. You can play it for, you know, however long, an hour, couple hours, and learn your basic Japanese characters. I'd rather people do that than watch a 2-hour video of me working on it now live on Facebook. Hope you're tuning in and getting something out of it and asking questions. Now, if somebody watches this for 2 hours, 92%. Yep, I thought something was up. Get something out of it, great. They watch it for a minute, get the basic idea, and they're like, well, that's cool. He's working on his game. And they move on, that's fine too. 92% on this one. This character is Blue. And there's another character that looks a lot like it called Ro. I teach my students, you distinguish them by, that one has the loop, that has the loop on it. And Ro, the other character, which I'll get to in a second, I feel that looks like a roll, like a roll. Okay. There's a do. Need to replace that. We are almost done. 2 more. And this one, and then 3. The light is at the end of the tunnel. The grand conclusion. What'll be 5 or 6 hours work to create a mistake of the past. Pay for the sins of the father, or really the sins of the younger self. The performance issues from when I save and it takes a little longer than it should are because I'm streaming at the same time. 5%, 5% more. Now this is an interesting question. The one time it came right back to the block I was working on, and every other time it hasn't. And I'll admit that to stream and have to keep talking and keep the audience engaged and do the game design stuff at the same time, it's pretty mentally taxing. Now, since I'm just doing these sort of, here's Uro with its roll at the end. Since I'm just doing these repetitive tasks over and over, possible to do it. But when I really have to focus and solve a problem, same scale, 92%, I remember, then that I can't walk and chew gum at the same time. I cannot stream and work and be creative and problem solve at the same time. And I actually learned that a while ago in the last Ludum Dare game jam. It's or Ludum Dare. It's a difficult word to remember. It's Latin. It means to give a game. Ludum Dare. A lot of people say Ludum Dare. I say it that way a lot. But then I think about, how would it be pronounced in Japanese? And that gets me a little closer to the Latin. And dare in Japanese means who. We just learned that in my class. That's how I remember it. Anyway, that last game jam that happened in April of 2019, I tried to make the game and stream at the same time for like the whole weekend. And I'll be honest, that was just not my best work at a game jam. And I think because of just how much energy it took to do both those things at the same time, that is like the least proud game design work I've done. I don't even feature that game on my website. So ashamed of it. I left it up on my Let 'em Dari profile just to say I've done another one of the game jams, but point of that is that if you really have to be creative and solve problems, you'll need to focus. There's a book called Deep Work by Cal Newport, one of my favorite authors. Suggest you read it. And it talks about the importance of focused deep work. Deep Work is the title of the book. Go check it out. Last character. Last one. I think that needs some scaling. What do you think? Last time we go check a quiz. $97. Last time I'll ever have to check a quiz for the scaling. This is the last one. Getting pretty good at memorizing numbers like this, which helps in my day job as a data analyst at a healthcare company. There it is. Boom. Final stroke of doom. Now all these image files are gone from the game. They're gone from the level select. I'm going to add the locks back in. And there we go. Now I'm going to come back to you and talk a bit. Hey, back. All right. So there we have it. I've replaced 46 button image files with just one image and put text on top of them, the same text, the same style, same size. That'll get rid of these 46 image files within the build and significantly reduce the file size of the app on the App Store. When people download it, it's taking less data, taking up less space on your phone or your tablet. And I think it's a pretty, any sort of optimization like that is a good improvement. So what are my next steps? Well, I have to do a build to see exactly how much I was able to reduce the file size by. And when I do this build, I'm going to put the game into autoplay. This is a really sloppy way to do it. This is how I do it in my code. I change the code on my paddle. I let that compile. And then what this will do is the game will just play itself. Never lose. And I'm going to play the game. Yep. Any performance issues you see on the screen with the game are because I'm streaming at the same time. The game itself runs fine. In Unity, when I'm not streaming, it runs fine on the device. All of this is just because I've got a lot of things going on at the same time. Okay, Here's what I mean by autoplay. Click to launch the ball, and it never loses. It can never lose. The paddle just follows the ball, and that'll clear all the levels, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to, when I build the game to a device, I'm going to have to test every quiz, every button, make sure the colors are changing the way they're supposed to. Like when you beat the level, the button color changes. Making sure that's working and looking nice on all devices. I've got 3 test devices. I'm going to build this to an Android phone, an iPhone, and an iPad, and just lay them out and let the game play itself and test all the buttons and the quizzes, make sure everything's looking good. I'm especially interested in how it's going to look on the iPad when just things get scaled up and get bigger. How's that text going to look? Because on the iPad, I can actually see those old image files I had. I could see the text getting a little bit pixelated when that image file got scaled up. So now that I've got actual text, I'm hoping that's going to look a lot cleaner when it gets scaled up on the iPad. But I'm going to shut down the computer, do those builds, and start testing all that. Hiragana Breaker is available on iOS and Android, free to download, and now just 99 cents, $1 USD. Unlock all the content for you to be able to learn your basic Japanese characters. Thank you for tuning in to Indie Game Designer at Work. This is Johnsensei signing off, and I'll see you next time.